2-year-old Caylee Anthony was last seen alive on June 16th, 2008. The search for the toddler drew national media attention. The entire country was swept up in the circus that followed, and the myriad of lies told by Caylee's mother, Caylee Anthony, who soon became the most hated woman in the country. Join us as we explore the circumstances of Caylee's disappearance and the infamous trial that followed. Welcome to Fact and Suspicion. I'm your host Dan, here with my co-host Ben, and tonight we will be discussing the controversial death of Caylee Anthony. Ben, I feel like I've always tried to be, fair to all the people we discuss in our episodes, right? And, I try to remain balanced, I guess, but in this particular one, I have a lot of feelings about Caylee Anthony.
And I think a lot of people have those feelings there.
Yeah, I feel like I should just go ahead and admit those are going to bleed through in the episode.
I don't think anybody's going to really fault you there, buddy.
Right. I mean, I'm going to try not to just completely, Nancy Grace this, but I can't just hold back on everything about this, right?
Right. Understandable, sir.
So, I guess everyone knows how I feel about it, but let's talk about what happened in this case. Now, Caylee Anthony was born on August 9th, 2005. Her mother, Casey, was 19 when she was born. Now, at the time, Casey was engaged to Jesse Grund, who at the time she claimed was Caylee's father.
I guess that wasn't true?
No. Now, Jesse is one of the few people who actually was tested for paternity later on, and it turned out that he definitely was not Caylee's father. But, eventually, Casey said, he's not the dad, right?
Did she know that when she was saying that he was?
I'm sure she did, because, honestly, the timeline of their meeting did not line up with, how far along she was in the pregnancy.
Gotcha.
However, I mean, she was a dumb kid. Maybe she didn't realize at the time. I don't know. But I get the feeling she did know that because, as we'll see, Casey was a habitual liar.
Shocking.
Right. Now, apparently, Casey's parents had attempted to cover up this pregnancy until Casey was about to pop, right?
Was there some sort of religious consideration there or something?
I don't think so. I've always gotten the sense from Cindy Anthony that she's the type of person that just wants to, cover up anything that might make her family look bad.
Again,
sort of sweep things under the rug, I understand what you're saying that, but and as you'll see later on, she really does seem to act this way. And I kind of get the feeling that that's why they tried to cover this up, right?
So you just assume she thought it was going to embarrass the family?
Right. So she wanted to avoid it as long as she could until Casey had the baby.
Gotcha.
Now, I can't say that for certain, but that's sort of the sense I get from it. Casey's brother Lee would actually testify to this fact that the family did try to hide it right up until, Casey was about to give birth. Now, another bit of background about George and Cindy is they were having a lot of financial trouble at the time. George had actually created a lot of debt for the family, and they were trying to sort of get out from under that debt, and they were struggling a bit. So, that's something they struggled with. And George often hid, the truth of his financial situation from Cindy. So you have another parent that is, I guess you could say deceptive in this. I mean, deceptive is a good word for it. So, you have one parent of Casey's that seems to want to sweep anything controversial under the rug, and another parent that is deceiving his family about the bad situation they're in.
Did he have some sort of failed business or something?
Well, he did. He had some bad investments. He had tried to open a car lot and some other things, and he also had some gambling debt, and all this stuff just sort of added up. But yeah, there were some financial issues. They weren't they weren't about to be homeless or anything, but they had trouble with it.
Gotcha.
Actually, Cindy had even, looked into divorcing George at one point, but they ended up staying together. But, she thought about divorcing him because of the finances, right? Now, that's just a bit of background on everything. Casey does stay with Jesse for a while. And Jesse, he loves Caylee. He really wanted to be her dad. He enjoyed being her dad. But Casey and Jesse eventually split up. And Jesse has said in interviews that Caylee told him she left him because he loved Caylee more than he loved Casey. And he was putting Caylee ahead of Casey.
Excuse me?
Newsflash to Caylee Anthony.
I mean, I guess
you're supposed to love your
to.
children the most, right? Like you're supposed to put your kids first. I guess she never understood that.
Must not have got that memo.
But yeah, and that's what he said in interviews later on.
So she wasn't exactly winning any Mother of the Year awards even before the let's say death happened.
No, I would not say that. I have heard some interviews with friends of hers that said she did seem to be a loving mother. That she paid attention to Caylee when she was around. She was always, loving with her when her interactions with her, but obviously this wasn't the case all the time. Now, after Caylee was born, Casey spent most of the time claiming that she had a job. She would go to this job and she'd have people watch Caylee for her. She'd have her mom watch Caylee. She'd get her friends to watch Caylee, right?
Okay.
So she could go to work. But Casey didn't have a job.
Did that not become obvious when she wasn't getting a paycheck? I mean, how did she hide that for very long?
Well, Cindy really just never pushed her on any of these things. And when George would ask questions about this stuff, Cindy would just stick up for her and say, hey, leave her alone, Where
was she getting money from? Was she borrowing it from her family?
We're going to get to that in just a second,
okay.
Actually. But Cindy, she just always had George back off of her and said, she's fine. Cindy was an enabler of Casey. And Casey just kept claiming she had this job. She said that she worked at Universal Studios selling pictures. You know how oftentimes
I remember that vaguely from the trial, but she never actually had that job.
She did have that job before Caylee was born, but she never went back to it after her maternity leave was over. And so she was fired from it. However, she started leaving and, quote unquote, going to work, but she was never actually going to work. She was, going hanging out with friends and stuff like that. Right. Now, at one point, she actually told one of her friends that she was working nights at Sports Authority and, doing stock and stuff overnight. So her friend would watch Caylee for her at night, and Casey could go out to the clubs at night and stuff and stay out as late as she wanted to.
Oh, dear God.
And the way Casey is getting money is she's actually stealing money from her parents and grandparents. She steals checks. She steals credit cards. And she's always giving her mom excuses about this stuff, right? Like, well, I didn't get my paycheck this week. There was a problem with that. I had to spend money on this. She kept trying to cover it up. And, at one point, Casey actually finds out that George had started a savings account for Caylee. He was putting a little bit of money out of every one of his paychecks into the savings account so Caylee would have that money later on. And Casey emptied that savings account out.
She was a stand-up gal, apparently.
She really was. She was even, stealing checks from her grandmother as well. Like, this is how Casey got money.
And I'm guessing she wasn't just like paying bills with this money.
Well, no, she didn't really have bills because she lived at home with her parents. Her parents provided all the food. They completely took care of Caylee. They owned her car. They paid for her car, her insurance. All Casey really had to do was pay for her cell phone bill, from what I understand. And, she bought clothes and stuff. But she was taking money to do these things. Now, eventually, Caylee got promoted at her job at Universal Studios.
How did she now?
She got a promotion to event coordinator. She was an event coordinator after this. She went from selling pictures to people, like where they were someone's picture would be taken while they're on a ride,
right?
And then you try to sell it to them. She was promoted from that to an event coordinator. And I should remind everyone here, Caylee doesn't even have a high school diploma or a GED. Now she has an important job at Universal Studios.
Well, I mean, that's just pulling herself up by the bootstraps, I guess.
She really
real
did
go-getter there.
And, this event coordinator job really gave her a lot more flexibility in her lives of when she had to go to work.
Right.
She could have an event she had to deal with on a weekend. At night, there could be something going on she had to deal with. Anytime, really, she wanted to get out of the house and have someone watch Caylee for her, she could come up with a something she had to do for her job.
I mean, as pretend jobs go, not a bad gig, right? None of that fake 9-to-5 shit. I mean,
yeah, it was. She had a really good pretend job, I feel like. Now, as I said, Caylee has been stealing money from her grandparents as well. And Caylee's grandmother actually finally files a police report about this because Cindy isn't doing anything about the money she's taking from Cindy and George. So the grandmother files a police report. And this sort of gets the ball moving where Cindy decides she needs to really look into this. And she and George start doing some research and they realize that Caylee has stolen over $40,000 from them.
Oh, dear Lord.
Right, between the checks, the credit cards, everything. $40,000.
How did they not miss 40 grand?
I guess
were they well off?
No, I wouldn't never not well off.
Particularly if they were in debt. I mean,
like I said, they were having financial difficulty. But I guess when you realize that this is happening over the course of a couple years, it's just a little here, a little there, and a lot of it's on credit cards. It's not like it's just coming right out of the bank,
Right.
I guess that's, it adds up, right? Now, Cindy decides she needs to confront Caylee about this. Finally, right? After she's been enabling her and making excuses for her all this time. And this happens on June 15th. Now, they end up having a pretty big fight because Cindy's confronting her about this. She's challenging Caylee, saying that she has not been a good parent. And she's actually mentioning to Caylee that she thinks that George and Cindy, that they should take custody of Caylee.
Well, it seems like they basically already have custody of Caylee.
Well, they have all the responsibility, but, they're not the legal parents. Right? And then the next day, June 16th, is actually the last day that Caylee was seen by anyone. This is just after the big confrontation. Now, George says that he sees Caylee and Caylee leave for Caylee to go to work and for Caylee to be dropped off with a nanny.
This was
allegedly.
Still the fake work.
Yes. And that's the last time anyone sees Caylee.
So even after being confronted, she still goes to her fake job?
Well, she was confronted about taking the money. She wasn't confronted about working a fake job.
Ah.
Right? They still assume she has a job. Caylee never comes back home either after this, though. She starts living with her boyfriend, Tony Lazzaro. And, she's telling the family that she and Caylee are staying with her boyfriend. Caylee is going to a new nanny. And this nanny is named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. If you remember that name.
Right. Was that a real person? I don't even remember.
Yes and no. There was a real person named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, but she never met Caylee Anthony, never babysitted Caylee. Never babysat Caylee, excuse me.
Gotcha.
But going on there, Caylee and Caylee are living with Tony, and Caylee still talks to her family on the phone, but Cindy's always saying she wants to see Caylee, she wants to talk to Caylee, and Caylee always has an excuse. Well, Caylee's with the nanny. Caylee is gone to a theme park. I'm taking her this weekend to Disney World, right? We've got something we're doing at Universal this weekend. There's always something going on so that Cindy and George can't see or talk to Caylee.
How long did this go on?
This went on for a month. For 31 days, this went on. Now, Cindy is getting very frustrated by this, right? And she's worried too because she hasn't seen either of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, she went from raising the kid to not being able to see her at all.
Right, and I would be very frustrated by it. I'd be very frustrated by it. On July 15th, something happens though. Cindy and George are contacted by an impound lot. As I said, they own the car that Casey uses.
Right.
And they contact them because this car has been sitting in the impound lot for 2 weeks.
Do we know the story about how it got there?
Well, it was towed from the parking lot of a check cashing place, and it had been there for a week before it was towed.
Gotcha.
And then it was the impound lot for 2 weeks. Now, obviously, this is really strange to George and Cindy. So George goes and picks the car up. They have to pay quite a bit to get it out of impound at this point, if they've had it for so long. And George says when he gets to the car, the trunk smells like, something's died in the trunk. It smells terrible.
Are they not putting 2 and 2 together here yet? I mean, haven't seen their granddaughter in a month. They go to the impound lot to get a car that Casey should be driving to work and discovered that it smells like something died in it. Are their brains not functioning properly here?
I suppose not. But I mean, at least to us looking at it now, it's very obvious what's going on.
I mean, I guess some things are so horrific, you don't want to go there.
Right. And you'd never suspect that, something like this would have happened, right?
Well, I mean, I would never suspect that under normal circumstances, but again, after not seeing the kid for a month, and then the trunk smelling like something died in it, it seems like, questions would be raised.
And I think questions are coming up in their minds at this point. Because they're very upset about the car being there. They're upset about the money. They're upset about the fact that they have not seen Caylee in a month. And Cindy just decides that she's going to see Casey and Caylee. She's going to go talk to Casey, and she's going to try to bring her home. Worst case scenario, she'll just get Caylee and bring Caylee home. So Cindy starts calling around to Casey's friends, trying to find out where Casey is. And she finally figures out where she is. And Cindy goes to pick up Casey and Caylee. But when she gets there, it's just Casey, and Casey's like, well, Kaylee's with the nanny. So she gets Casey in the car to take her back home. And this is when the infamous 911 calls start. Cindy first calls 911 while she's driving Casey, back to their home. And she's wanting to just take her to the police station. And she wants to press charges against Casey for quote unquote stealing their car, which you can't really say that because it was Casey's car, right? Even though her parents owned it, you can't say that. But also it's about the money. And she's also, concerned because she hasn't seen Caylee for a month. And she mentions, well, she doesn't mention that in the first call. But I feel like the thing with Caylee is she wants to get Caylee. I don't think she really thinks Caylee is missing at this point. She just thinks that Casey has kept Caylee away from her. And she wants to get Caylee back. And I get the idea that she's trying to call the police and take Casey to the police station to put some pressure on her to get her to pretty much give Caylee over to George and Cindy.
It makes sense.
Right. And that's when that first call happens. But what it is she actually calls the city of Orlando police. But the police department she should have been calling was Orange County Sheriff's Department, because the jurisdiction of where they lived was actually not within the city. So that police officer, or the person that answered the phone that she spoke with, is transferring her to Orange County. And I think we're going to go ahead and play this portion of the call for everyone.
So just to be clear, this is the second call, and the first one had nothing to do with the missing child.
Right. Well, technically, I guess it's still part of that same call because she was still on the phone and was transferred to Orange County. So she's still on the phone, but she's talking to another person.
Okay.
911, what is the address? What's happening?
I have someone here that I need to be arrested in my home.
They're there right now?
I have a possible missing child. I have a 3-year-old that's been missing for a month.
A 3-year-old?
Yes.
Have you reported that?
I'm trying to do that now, ma'am.
Okay, what did the person do that you need arrested?
My daughter.
For what?
For stealing an auto and stealing money. I already spoke with someone. They said they would patch me through the Orlando Sheriff's Department and have a deputy here. I was in the car. I was going to drive her to the police station, and no one's open. They said they would bring a deputy to my home when I got home to call them.
So she stole your vehicle?
Yes.
When did she do that?
On the 30th. I just got it back from the impound. I'd like to speak to an officer. Can you have someone come out to my house?
Okay. Okay, I got to ask you these questions so I can put them in the call, okay?
Okay.
30th of June?
Yes.
Okay, how old is your daughter?
22.
Okay, what's her name?
My name?
Her name.
Her name?
And you said you have this vehicle back?
Yes. I have the statement.
She's there right now?
Yes, I got her. I finally found her after a month. She's been missing for a month. I found her, but we can't find my granddaughter. 5'1.5".
Thin, medium, or heavy build?
Thin.
Color hair?
Brown.
What color shirt is she wearing?
White.
What color pants?
Oh, they're shorts. They're plaid. They're like pink and teal and white, black plaid.
Does she have any weapons on her?
No.
Is she not telling you where her daughter is?
Correct.
Okay, we'll have a deputy out to you as soon as one's available, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so let me tell you my problem with this call. So the mother says that she hasn't seen the grandchild in 30 days. There's a missing kid. But she leads with the car being stolen. And then the operator seems to only want to ask about the damn car. I mean, like, it's priorities, people. Like, this call is just baffling to me. Like, she mentions that a kid has been missing for a month. And for the next minute, they're talking about the damn car. Does that not strike you as a little strange?
That is strange, but here's my take on the situation. I don't think that Cindy really believes that Caylee is missing at this point. I think Cindy just believes that Casey is trying to keep Caylee away from them. Right? She's mad at him because Cindy confronted her about the money and everything, and she's mad at them, and she's trying to keep Caylee away from them to punish them. That's probably what Cindy thinks.
Okay,
right.
I understand that, but how do you explain the operator just kind of ignoring the whole missing kid detail and asking for information about the stolen vehicle?
Well, I do think that the operator should have focused more on Caylee in that call.
More? I mean, how
However,
about screw the car and we talk about the missing child?
Well, I think the operator is getting a sense that this is sort of just a family disagreement and maybe there's no real problem going on, right?
Maybe so.
Now,
the
I
only
don't
other
know
alternative
that.
is just extreme incompetence.
I agree. I agree with that. Though, you know, if that operator really thinks this is just sort of a family dispute, a family spat, I can understand why she'd try to move past that, because I don't think it's uncommon for a child's parent to keep that child away from the grandparents, and the grandparents probably call the police about that more than you would think.
I hear you. It's just like throughout this conversation, the whole missing kid thing just seems like an afterthought. Yeah, car was stolen, got some money taken. Oh yeah, missing kid for 30 days. Oh, did I mention the car?
Well, and also Cindy doesn't seem really that concerned about the missing child at this point either. And I think the operator reads into that a bit, if that makes sense too.
I guess.
I don't know. This is just the best I can understand it. I'm not saying that's the case, and I'm not saying you're wrong at all. This is just sort of how I'm reading that situation. I think definitely when someone says there's a child missing, you've got to look into that. And I think now in 2021 that any operator would focus in on that immediately.
I mean, I would hope in the year one they would focus on the missing kid. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what the year has to do with it here.
Well, I just feel like the 911 operators are probably better trained at this point, because, I mean, how many cases have we looked at where the police don't respond quickly enough to missing child?
Okay, Daniel, so here's my problem with this. Okay, so I am not a 911 operator. I have, in fact, zero training as a 911 operator. And if you told me that your car was stolen and you haven't seen a kid for 30 days, you see, my priority would be on that second one. The whole missing child thing.
I agree with you. And I don't know why they handled it this way, but you heard the call. This is what happened.
It seems like we just need to have a real conversation about priorities at this point.
Well, we're definitely going to have some conversations about priorities, not necessarily with this operator. I mean, but we will be talking about Casey's priorities here in just a little bit.
And maybe you're right that she doesn't really think at this point that anything happened to the child, but there's something really disturbing about the blasé attitude she has about a kid seemingly vanishing for a month.
Well, that's all going to change in this next call, as we'll see in just a second.
Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and play that before my head explodes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play that second call.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago. The deputy sheriff's not here. I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what is
here now?
Okay, what is the address that you're calling from?
We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. She just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, is she white, black, or Hispanic?
She's white.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
What is her date of birth?
8/9/2000. Oh God, she's 3. She's 2005. So it's Kaylee's missing. Kaylee's missing. Casey says Danny took her a month ago. She's been missing for a month.
Okay, I understand. Can you calm down for me for just a minute, and I need to know what's going on, okay? I'm gonna try and talk.
What is it we can do?
Is your daughter there?
I'm on the phone with them.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her? Do you mind if I speak with her? Thank you.
I called them 2 hours ago. They haven't gotten here. She finally admitted to saying he took her months ago.
Ma'am.
Okay, Sheriff's Department, they want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Okay, did you guys call and report a vehicle stolen?
Yes, my mom did.
Okay, so there's been a vehicle stolen too?
No, this was my vehicle.
What vehicle was stolen?
It's a 98 Pontiac Sunfire.
Okay, I have deputies on the way to you right now for that. But now your 3-year-old daughter is missing. Caylee Anthony.
Yes.
White female.
Anthony. Yes, white female.
3 years old. 8/9/2005 her date of birth.
Yes.
And you last saw her a month ago.
31 days. From 31 days.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Who is that? Babysitter?
She's been my nanny for about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
And why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
Okay. Can you give me the name of the nanny again? Like spell it out for me.
Zenaida, Zenaida.
Last name? Fernandez.
Gonzalez. I think the officers are here.
The officers are there?
Yes.
Okay, so at the very least here, I at least sensing the appropriate level of urgency here. You know, at least until Casey gets on the phone.
Yeah.
But at least from the mom, like it seems like there's a kid missing at this point.
Yeah, this is why I get the sense that up until this, she really didn't think anything was wrong. She thought that Casey was just keeping Caylee away from them, right?
Fair enough.
But she is obviously very panicked at this point. She's very upset when she makes this other call.
Though you'll note that she does mention the fact that the car smelled like there was a dead body in.
Yes, and you know,
did she not put this together a little earlier?
Start putting this together yet, right? And maybe in her mind, the back of her mind is starting to go there, right? But she thinks she's believing Casey that Caylee has been taken by the nanny. I don't know why anyone would believe anything that Caylee Anthony says.
Yeah, that seems like poor decision making.
Right, because, you know, she's been shown, you know, to lie over.
She's a lying bitch. Right? I think those are the words you're looking for.
I think that's a good term for her, right? And did you hear in that conversation? You can hear.
I know exactly what you're about to say because it almost made the top of my head fly off.
Yeah,
I think the exact words were, "I don't have anything to talk to them about."
Yeah,
is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, did you really just say that? So, if anyone didn't hear that in the call, you can just barely hear it when Cindy's handing the phone to Casey. You can hear Casey say something along the lines of, "I don't have anything to talk to them about."
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the missing kid?
It's been missing for 31 days.
Oh,
and then when the operator says, "Why didn't you call 31 days ago?" That's the question everyone's asking, right?
Right. And her response was that she went through other resources or something. I mean, what did she Google it? What were you doing that other than calling the police?
Well, in all reality, she was out partying, but
no, say it ain't so, Dan.
I guess we can get into that in a little bit, but
you mean she wasn't desperately looking for her missing child?
No.
Chasing down this mysterious nanny?
She was not. She was not doing that at all, sir. But let's let's talk about what Casey said. Now, Casey ends up telling the officers when they get there that the reason she hadn't called earlier is because, she's seen in movies and heard that in this type of situation, when the police get involved, that's when the victims start to get hurt, right?
Right.
And she's concerned about the safety of her daughter if she calls the police.
Did she mention what these other resources were?
No, not exactly. Just that she had been, trying to find her on her own, right? Now, Casey tells the officers about the nanny, about Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. Now, she says that she took Caylee and that she told Casey to change her social media passwords to timer 55. And what was going to happen was that Zenaida, or Zanny the nanny, as Casey had always referred to her, that Zanny was going to upload instructions onto Casey's MySpace page on August the 9th as to what Casey would have to go do to get Caylee back. Now, August the 9th was going to be Kaylee's 3rd birthday.
That may be the dumbest, most convoluted lie I've ever heard.
Yeah, you know what it really put me in the mind of? Do you remember that Evil Genius documentary?
Yes.
Where the guy was supposed to go through the hunt, the scavenger hunt to find directions on how to get the collar off. It put me in the mind of that. It's that far-fetched. I realized
that
the collar
was
bomb
real.
That was real, right? But it's so far-fetched, right, that this happened. And obviously the police think it's far-fetched as well. Because
so they're not buying this bullshit, right?
No, they don't believe this at all, because who does that, right? And why wouldn't she have called already?
Yeah, that's a reasonable question, I think.
Yeah, and the officers are even asking her, "Are you sure you don't want to change anything about this story?" And she's like, "No." She sticks by her story, right?
Imagine being so stupid that when even the cops give you the opportunity to change that ludicrous story, you're like, nah, no holes in that. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Right, and now the way she explained that crazy password, timer 55, is apparently it was supposed to have been 55 days from the day that Zanny took Caylee until her 3rd birthday on August 9th.
Oh, dear God.
So that's where the 55 comes from, right? Now, police did check, and her MySpace and Facebook pages did have a password set to timer 55. So apparently Casey had thought that through.
You mean a part of the lie that was completely in Kaylee's control checked out?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying Casey had already thought this through and changed it, right?
Well, I mean, I think thought it through is a bit charitable, buddy.
Well, she'd at least figured out how to back up that part of the lie, right? Now,
I think I can grant you that, yes.
Police say, well, can you give us the phone number that you used to get a hold of Zanny? And she's like, I can't give you that phone number because it's in my phone, and I left my phone at my office at work.
You mean that the fake work?
Yes, at Universal Studios, which is real, but it's her fake work, right?
Right.
And so like, okay, well, can you take us to where she lived, to her apartment? Because Casey said she went back to the apartment that after she dropped her off that morning, she went back to the apartment that evening to pick her up, and no one was there. So Casey takes them to an apartment, and the police look at the apartment, and it's completely empty. No one's living there. And they look into it, and no one has lived there for months.
That's shocking. This is my shocked face.
Yeah, well, I'd say I would say the police have a shocked face on too. That's pretty similar to yours because they knew what was going to happen, right?
I think incredulousness probably covers that better.
Yeah. So,
like, is this bitch really telling us this?
Well, and at that point they're like, well, we need to get that phone number from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm sure she just provided that immediately.
They want to go to her work and pick up the phone. So on the way over to Universal Studios, Casey's telling them that actually she didn't leave her phone at work. It actually was stolen while she was at work. And she did report that to loss prevention at work, though.
Okay.
So the police are saying, well, we still need to go over there. We need to check into that. We need to see if we can't get this phone back. And on the way over there, they're asking Caylee. I shouldn't say on the way over, but they do ask Caylee as part of this investigation, have you told anyone else that Caylee's missing? And she does say that she's told a couple of her coworkers. One is a man named Jeffrey Hopkins. And according to her, Jeffrey actually has a 4-year-old son named Zach that Zanny also had been watching. And another coworker of hers at Universal named Juliette Lewis. Now, I don't know if Casey just stole that name or if you recognize it, but Juliette Lewis is a pretty famous actress, right?
Is she?
Juliette Lewis was in Cape Fear when she was young. She was in Natural Born Killers. She was in From Dusk Till Dawn. I'm sure you've seen that, right?
Oh, yeah.
She was, the daughter of the family that sort of kidnapped in that.
Dude, I remember one scene from Till Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, I'm sure I know which scene you're talking about.
I mean, it involves Selma Hayek and a snake, and that's really the only thing about that movie I remember.
Well, at any rate,
and I'll thank you not to mess with that memory.
Well, I'm trying to just say that she was a pretty well-known actress at one point. So I don't know if Caylee Anthony didn't realize that, or if she was just looking for a name and pulled one, out of thin air, whatever. But
right.
It's strange to me that she would pick the name of a known actress. But at any rate, she gives them these names. She's made up a story about Jeffrey Hopkins having
I don't understand.
a son.
I mean, I get it. She's really dumb, right? We seem to have established that thus far. But why is she just piling unnecessary lies on top of one another at this point? I mean, it's not like these are crucial lies, right? Like, these are completely unnecessary. Like, these details about how, oh, yeah, I told this guy and we share the same nanny. Like, why would you give bullshit details like that are so easy to verify?
She's a compulsive liar, sir. I that's all I can say.
And very
I don't know why.
stupid.
She is. Yeah.
Okay. So continue.
Well, as I said, they're on the way to Universal Studios.
Right.
And they get there, and Casey's like, oh, hey, I don't have my badge. She's trying to get through security. And security's like,
convenient.
Well, let's look you up, right? And
that's nice of them.
Yeah, they're like, well, we don't have any record of Caylee Anthony working here. And she's like, oh, no. She gives them the name of her supervisor and his extension. The extension doesn't work. They say they don't have anyone there by the name that she gives for the supervisor.
I mean, she's really going through with this.
Right. Eventually, the cops are like, can we just get her in here? And like, well, she's here with cops. Let's just go ahead, right? They go on in. They're walking down the halls. And they say eventually Casey just walks down this hall and stops and turns around and says, yeah, I don't really work here.
I mean, how long was she going to let this play out? Like, the cops had to have been thinking that exact thing. Like how long is this idiot going to let us do this? But you know what? I love that the cops let it happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to let it go. You have to just see how many lines she's going to tell you, right?
Oh, dear God.
Now, it does turn out that there was a Jeffrey Hopkins that worked there, but he was fired in 2002. So I'm guessing it was just luck that she picked that name.
Well, could they have worked there at the same time when she did legitimately work there?
And no, that the time frame I don't think would have lined up. I mean, maybe it would have, because she had Caylee in 2005. She was 19. I don't know how. I mean, she couldn't have been working there. I wouldn't think she'd have been working there in 2002, because that would have put her being like 16. I don't think she was working there when she was that young. But I mean, it's possible, I guess. That Juliette Lewis had never worked there.
I mean, were none of the employees like wondering like, who is this crazy lady with the cops?
No, I mean, they did. Obviously, they did. But because she was there with cops, they're like, well, we're just going to let her go through, because the cops need to, move on with this, right? And like Tom Frank, that's the name she gave for her supervisor. He had never worked there. They had no record of Tom Frank. So at this point, they take her in, start questioning her.
No.
And, they're like, do you want to tell us what really happened here? And she sticks by the story that Zenaida took her and she hasn't seen her in a month. And the cops are like, listen, we know this woman doesn't exist.
So they'd already looked into that?
No, they hadn't. They just, obviously.
They didn't need to. Okay.
They didn't need to. They're saying, tell us where Caylee is. And, we can get past some of this stuff. And, at this point, they're still thinking, maybe Casey really is just trying to keep Caylee away from her parents.
Right.
But they're worried there may be more to this because of all the lies.
This whole interview reminds me a lot of that Billy Madison, that skit from Billy Madison where Chris Farley says that he, had banged, what was the school teacher's name?
Miss Vaughn?
Miss Vaughn. And Billy's like, no, you didn't. Okay, but I knew a guy who did. No, you didn't. No, I didn't.
You mean that's almost basically what they're doing to her here, right?
Except in this case, at least Chris Farley finally admitted it.
Right, but she never did. Well, she didn't yet, right? For a long time. This goes on and on. They try to get information out of her. She sticks by her story, and eventually they arrest her. They arrest her for neglect, and at this point, she is assigned a court-appointed attorney, but she soon retains the services of Jose Baez.
There's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, I guess he hasn't really been in the media a lot lately, but he is a very famous attorney now. And I'm not going to say that he's a good attorney. I mean, he did some terrible things in that trial we'll get to later, but at any rate, she has Jose Baez now. Now, she actually gets out on bond a few times, but she always ends up getting put back in jail for something. I shouldn't say always, but a couple times, she's written some bad checks. She ends up getting sent back to jail for that. Just different stuff until eventually Casey is finally indicted on October 14th. She's indicted for manslaughter and first-degree murder, but
Without
they don't
body?
even have a body.
Yeah, that does seem strange.
Now, as obvious as it may seem to a lot of people at that point that Casey had murdered Caylee, I don't know how you indict someone on first-degree murder when you don't have a body and have no idea what happened.
I guess with all the lies she told, they just assumed they'd figure it out eventually, but that does seem like quite a risk to take.
I would agree with you on that.
You'd also need a certain standard of evidence to even get the indictment. Yeah, that confuses me too.
Yeah. Now, granted, there was evidence, right? It was, I would call it circumstantial, though. At least evidence of how Casey had been acting, I suppose. I mean, actually, while Caylee was quote unquote missing before it was reported to police, Casey was out there partying, right?
Oh yeah, I remember the news talking about that. I mean, there were a lot of pictures showing her dancing and stuff, right?
Yeah, there were.
Clubs.
Right, yeah, dancing in clubs. She was grinding on this other girl at a hot body contest at a club.
Yeah. I remember that.
And she got a tattoo on her shoulder that said Bella Vita, which means good life.
And this was during the 30 days when her kid was missing.
Yeah, right. And what mother would do that if her child was missing?
A very bad one. Final answer.
That is very true. But what I'm trying to say is that this is that doesn't add up to police, right? And, I guess they suspect that maybe she has killed her. That they don't think there's any way that the girl's really missing because Casey has not been worried about this at all.
Right, yeah.
Now, Casey would say to people, I had to put on this brave face because, Zanny would have hurt her if I acted like something was wrong. But that was another huge lie. Obviously, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, Caylee was dead. And what's even more disturbing is that she's acting like this when she knows her child's dead.
Oh, yeah.
Like
total scumbag.
It shakes me to my core to imagine that, right? If something happened to one of my kids, I would lose my mind. You know, I wouldn't be okay. I probably would never be okay again.
Dude, I would be more concerned over one of my dogs being missing than she was about her kid.
You know, and I don't know how many times we've said, you know, there's not a standard way you're supposed to expect a parent to act in these situations.
I know we've said that, but I think we can both agree that this ain't it. However it is you're supposed to act, this ain't registered.
No. This is so far removed from that, right? I can't wrap my head around Caylee Anthony. She just blows my mind completely. And it makes sense. It makes sense why everyone hated Caylee Anthony, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they still do. You know, I think everyone still hates Caylee Anthony. I still hate Caylee Anthony.
Well, it's because we know she got away with killing her kid, so... I mean, spoiler alert, in case we happen to have ruined that for anybody.
Now, Caylee's body is about to be found, and this is going to change everything with this case and the investigation. But for time's sake, with discussing all of that and the entirety of the trial, we've decided we can't fit that into one episode. So we will stop here, and we will come back to this in our next episode. We hope you've enjoyed the first part of our series on Caylee Anthony. If you have any feedback for us, or if you'd like to suggest a case for us to cover, we'd love for you to reach out to us. You can contact us through email at factandsuspicion@gmail.com or through Twitter @andsuspicion.